Jemima Gilman's grave marker is illegible. A gravestone rubbing was used to make out her name on the stone, but the dates were impossible to decipher. She was buried in Range 18, Lot 59 together with her sister, Samantha Swain, who does not have a marker. Jemima was born about October 7, 1801, in Unity, New Hampshire, the daughter of Stephen Gilman about age 44, and his second wife, Dorothy Clough, age 36. Education was always important in New England. The earliest law establishing schools in Massachusetts was written in 1647. New Hampshire's history is complicated with a time it had its own provincial government and a time when it was part of the Massachusetts colony. Under King George II, New Hampshire returned to its provincial status with a governor of its own in 1741. The state required some kind of school to be maintained in some way to teach reading and writing and arithmetic. Both boys and girls were able to attend free public schools. Reading was taught from the Bible, and arithmetic was taught by the teacher without a textbook. Though, depending on the town, school attendance might be sporadic or the basics were taught in the home. When Jemima was a girl, Unity had a population of about 1,000. While Unity now sends the children to schools in neighboring towns, when Jemima was young, there were 12 to 16 schools in Unity. In 1796, her father paid £2 9 shillings and 6 pence for the schoolhouse tax. While Jemima could probably read, write, and do her sums, she was not expected to work outside the home. The men in her life would care for her. First her father, and then her husband. She would have learned the skills needed to care for her home and family: cooking, cleaning, sewing, preserving, gardening, and treating illnesses and injuries. She was 29 when her father passed away in 1830, but her father continued to provide for her and her unmarried sisters. Jemima, Dorothy, and Samantha were each bequeathed $50 together with the privilege of having a home at my now dwelling house so long as she shall remain single. Stephen also left his widow the use of 1/2 of his land, all his household furniture, 1 cow, 6 sheep, and the use of 1 horse, saddle, and bridle so long as she shall remain my widow. Sheep were a major industry in Unity, and the earmarks were assigned and recorded in the town records. The widow Gilman had 2 men aged 20 but under 30, 1 girl aged 10 but under 15, and a girl aged 20 but under 30 living with her in 1830. This would have been her son Benjamin, who had inherited his father's real estate together with all the livestock, farming tools, carriages, and the remaining personal property, and her son Cornelius, who had inherited $300. Jemima, Dorothy, and Samantha were all single when their father wrote his will on March 8, 1826, but only 2 of them were living with their widowed mother in 1830, probably Jemima, who was still single and living with her mother in 1850, and Samantha, who married in 1838. Benjamin had to wait 25 years before his mother passed away, and he gained total control of all his father's land. But Jemima remained single and was still living in the house, which was situated on property worth $600. Jemima may have remained single so she could care for her mother. Benjamin seems to have loved his sister as he named his daughter after her. Benjamin was prospering. His farm was worth $1,600, and he had personal assets worth $600. Samantha Gilman and her husband Hale Bartlett left Unity shortly after their marriage, moving to Lowell, Massachusetts, back to Unity, and then to Manchester, New Hampshire. After Hale's death in 1853, Samantha ran a boarding house and in 1860 had 28 residents. Perhaps that was how she met Calvin Dudley. They married and Samantha moved to Nashua. Jemima continued to live in the house until her mid-70s when she moved in with her sister in Nashua. They were both living at 7 Church Street in 1879. In 1880, Jemima moved to Manchester, to live with John Farnham and his wife Mary Jane Chapman. Mary Jane was from Unity and had moved with her parents to Manchester before 1850. As Unity was a small community, with a population of about 1,000 people, it is not surprising that Jemima and Mary Jane were distant cousins, though without a genealogist in the family, they probably had no clue. Some Unity connection most likely brought them together, but the reason isn't obvious, but Nancy Maria Bartlett Hentoun was a common connection. Mary Jane's nephew, Charles Chapman was boarding with Nancy in Manchester, and Samantha also moved into the same household as Nancy Hintoon was her former sister-in-law. But Jemima and Samantha only stayed in Manchester for a few months. She and Samantha moved back to Nashua and lived together at 115 Walnut Street until Jemima passed away in 1883. In 1884, Samantha married Elijah Swain and they moved to Stoneham, Massachusetts, probably to be near her only child, Wilson Bartlett, and her grandchildren. She died there on August 6, 1905, and was buried in Nashua in the plot with Jemima on August 8, 1905. Judi Tatem's book, Old Homes and Places of Interest in Unity, New Hampshire 250 Years and Counting, has a map in the front that shows where the Gilman homestead was, and there is a photograph of the house Jemima and Samantha grew up in.